Hoy no voy a hablar yo. Hoy vas a escuchar la opinión de las personas que directamente deciden o asesoran a las personas que toman las decisiones a nivel geopolítico. Vas a escuchar la opinión de analistas geopolíticos, de asesores financieros, de gente que ha trabajado en la Casa Blanca, gente que ha trabajado para nada más y nada menos que SWIFT, que han estado en su consejo de administración. ¿Y qué es lo que piensan ellos, estos asesores, estos expertos, no solamente en finanzas, sino a nivel geopolítico, de la comunidad de inteligencia? ¿Qué opinan ellos sobre el sector de activos digitales? Sin nombrar específicamente a XRP, pero ¿por qué analizar el sector de activos digitales sin tener en cuenta la geopolítica? Es un error enorme que por desgracia está muy extendido en el sector de activos digitales. No puedes analizar el sector de activos digitales sin tener en cuenta la geopolítica. Y por eso hoy no voy a hablar yo, te voy a poner a continuación una serie de clips para que tú mismo llegues a la conclusión de por qué las funciones del dólar, no el dólar, sino las funciones del dólar van a ser sustituidas por XRP. Repito, el gran componente que falta por desgracia en el sector de activos digitales es la visión geopolítica de lo que está ocurriendo en el mundo. No son tiempos normales, son tiempos extremadamente excepcionales y hace falta entender que estamos en mitad de una transición, no dicho por mí, sino por las siguientes personas.
So for the cross-border payment challenge, we've created an open internet model. We call the idea interledger. So interledger, like the internet, supports our Ripple technology globally. And that model does not require a single universal common blockchain. It requires a very open blockchain interconnectivity. And that means that the volume is theoretically infinite. It's like the internet never runs out of capacity. Elements do, but the internet still works because it's inherently decentralized. So Ripple is the same. Through a decentralized model, it is infinitely scalable. Supporting that, we have our liquidity proposition, which uses XRP, and that's a classic blockchain. But XRP was designed from the outset for transacting. So unlike the likes of Bitcoin, which is like very slow and slows down as you continue to build on volume, the XRP model is very, very, very high speed and very high capacity. So the liquidity part is very adequately served by the XRP model. The wider network we're creating, where if you're really going to create something of value for 7 billion people in the world, or 9 billion,
can't be one blockchain. No matter how passionate you are about your favorite layer one, there can't be one. If there's only one, then there will be no innovation because there's no break-in points. The barrier of entry is too high, and basically you'll have the malaise that you have in traditional financial systems. Just you'll have it in blockchain form. So there'll be many, and they'll continue to proliferate in this world. The real question, and the other truth is, you cannot scale a decentralized blockchain, theoretically impossible, that maintains each of the three balance points for a blockchain to 1 million transactions per second, really the amount that we would need to cover global scale financial transactions. You can't do it. So there can't be one. What that means is methods to connect chains together and to actually have a chain of chains is actually the essential component in this new world. And there's good solutions out there in order to connect chains. So I can have one blockchain that is completely public. I can stand up another blockchain, a layer 2 blockchain. I can proof its activity down to the lower chain, and now I've just doubled the scale of that chain. I can do that a layer above and a layer above, or layers outward, horizontally or vertically, to get to that point. But what that means is I have many chains. Now those chains may be public, they may be private. There are good reasons why chains should be private. Transaction privacy matters. Let's say I want to run a dark pool. That's a useful thing in the markets. And so you do want to keep your transactions private.
So I think we do need to explore this public-private partnership. One thing that is of the utmost importance is thinking about privacy. And this is something that Libra really got wrong. Everything is out in the open. Everything is public, all transactions. They don't put actual user identities out there on the blockchain. They use encoded numbers instead, but that is easily traceable, easily mineable. And I think it really speaks to, who originated this design didn't take privacy very seriously. Now, you might say, hey, we would like to use these transaction systems in order to find illicit activity, to find criminals. However, I think that that can be done while considering privacy and security. We went through a similar debate around HTTPS, which is the protocol that is used to secure today's web. Now, at the time, it seemed inconceivable to allow user web activity to be encrypted and outside of the surveillance apparatus. But now, 81% of government websites use HTTPS. I think we have to think about technologies like this. We have to think about privacy, and we need a public-private partnership in the spirit of what we did with ARPANET and the internet in order to move this forward.
Okay. Sounds like one distinct option. Yes,
are you
ma'am, go ahead.
suggesting that we can't do this alone as the U.S. government, that we don't have the ability?
That's
Perhaps
exactly
should
the question we should ask the Secretary of the
yes,
Treasury and then on
Secretary
the
of the
Secretary.
Treasury.
Secretary Summers, does Treasury have the capability and technical know-how to successfully implement a digital dollar?
Let me just say, this is not a Kennedy School exercise for us.
That's right.
We've got a
Thank God.
staff of 40 people who've been working on this for a long time, who have extensive experience with the relevant interconnections.
Okay. So just
First
to
thing,
clarify,
no,
the answer is yes?
The answer is that the SWIFT system is an interbank system. You cannot meaningfully work on an interbank system without working with the private sector. And I spoke with Jamie Dimon 3 months ago. There's a team of people that he's pulled together from the 6 major financial institutions in the United States, along with a number, Larry Fink, and a number of the asset managers who are working with an interagency team at the Fed, at the Treasury, at the controller of the currency to get this right. Right now, we have one network that doesn't work very well. The worst idea in the world would be to now try to have 2, SWIFT and some other separate cyber project. We have this under control. We've got a public sector-led team with the relevant private sector actors that is hardening SWIFT. And a hard SWIFT that will be secure has to be our first priority.
Okay.
We don't need to worry about the dollar. Look, let's be honest here in the situation room. Europe's a museum, Japan's a nursing home, and China's a jail. And we don't need to worry about those currencies being some kind of major threat to us.
Okay, and I know the president will press me on this. When can we make this happen? If it's a real option, we have to think about implementation.
We will have a new hardened currency SWIFT system ready to roll out 6 months from today.
Are you willing to bet your job on it?
I'm willing to.
You know our president will ask that. Are you willing to bet your job on it?
That we will have such a system in place.
Okay.
Frankly, there is one thing that we will need. Our efforts have been substantially impaired by the currency czars calling and giving contradictory instructions to the people we're speaking with. And so if you give us responsibility, we'll deliver. If the
right now,
czar is doing
as
it,
always,
then we'll see what
with
happens.
all due respect, Mr. Secretary, the White House is in charge, and as a direct staffer to the president,
then
we'll keep it that way.
The currency czar and our Kennedy School friends.
Right. It's a good team spirit, Mr. Secretary. Thank you very much.
Can try to deliver this currency.
So we have one of the options on the table is to develop a U.S. version of digital currency, either possibly alone, although that sounds hard, or as a public-private partnership. I want to think about other options, though, to try to get at the issue of North Korea. Let's not forget what it is we're trying to focus on here and not just the shiny ball of a digital currency. Mr. Secretary, do you have a thought on? Of course.
Clarifying question, which is, Secretary Summers, are you suggesting that the U.S. create our own digital currency, or just that we work on SWIFT, we stick to our current system, but make SWIFT less vulnerable to cyber threats?
We need to make a secure SWIFT. Look, SWIFT is digital. It's all binary. It's all electronic communication. So there's a question about what the definition, what we mean by that. But my proposal is that we harden SWIFT, that we commit with respect to avoiding what other countries see as abuse of SWIFT, and that we make clear that where there are SWIFT transactions involving North Korea or involving other rogue nations, we will use the leverage associated with SWIFT. But secondary sanctions on those who are engaged in transactions and commerce that does not involve rogue nations, we will not seek to interfere.
Okay.
Unless we make a pledge of that kind, we are likely to lose the integrity of SWIFT.
If I can try to clarify real quick, that sounds like a major policy change for the U.S. government, that we're going to commit to not implementing secondary sanctions. So we'll propose that to the president from the Secretary of Treasury. Hardening SWIFT, but that is different than the proposal from our currency czar on proposing a digital currency.
Three pieces. We've got public sector, private sector team now working on hardening SWIFT. If there should be some digital component that's separate from the current SWIFT system, that can be part of what that team works on, but we are well down the field and we need to build on the momentum of that project.
But there's one thing that I wanted to give the audience something to think about, and I've been thinking a lot about this. I'm watching the rest of the world. I'm watching this de-dollarization, which is actually picking up steam. And we're not talking a few countries. We're talking countries that are going to essentially put the so-called petrodollar at very high risk, if not out of business. You have the Saudis that are now doing business with the Chinese in yuan. You have the Saudis, or not the Saudis, but the Chinese that have established these gold exchanges, one in Riyadh and the other in Hong Kong, one with renminbi and so forth. I see the world in the future, and I don't know how long this takes, if it's a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, but I see a split occurring where one half of the world is going to fall in line with this thing we call BRICS, you know, Brazil, Russia, India, China, Saudi Arabia. And I think they'll have as many as 100 nation states aligned with them in a new financial system that is divorced from us. And we, and whoever is with us, some Europeans, I imagine, maybe the Japanese, perhaps some Latin American countries, I don't know. But I think we will then move into a system where it is not simply our fiat currency. We're going to look for things that we can back our currency with. But I also think there may be a role there for digital currency that is a little different from what we're imagining. And I don't think it's state-sponsored or state-owned, but independent of the central banks. In other words, we're going to move away from the system we have now, which is, faith in the dollar, in the great institutions and so forth, which is eroding pretty rapidly, let's face it. And I think the other side is going to be very heavy on gold, primarily, but also perhaps some other commodities. I don't know what else they would include. So there'll be two hemispheres, if you will, in a monetary or financial sense. I don't know all the details, but that's kind of what I see as a split. And we're not going to like it, but we brought it on ourselves. You can't bully people in the financial system relentlessly the way we have. We've talked about weaponization of the dollar, and everybody laughs. Well, it's the dollar, you know. People have had it with us. The world is sick of Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I think we're also at a unique moment geopolitically, and I could see in the next few years that we are going to have some kind of a grand global economic reordering. It's something on the equivalent of a new Bretton Woods, or if you want to go back, like something back to the Steel Agreements or the Treaty of Versailles. There's a very good chance that we are going to have to have that over the next 4 years, and I'd like to be a part of it. I've studied this.